Hello again. Nice to see
Hi.
everybody back here again. And I'd like you to welcome Katie Young, who's our writer this week, who's going to tell us about her writing journey and the book that she's about to publish. And just a little bit of story here. I met Katie quite a few years ago because we do have COVID in between, and we're still going to say there's a gap in our lives. So that extends the amount of time since I've actually seen and been in a room with Katie. But so when I met Katie, she had just written or was coming to the end of writing a fabulous book. And it was the girl next door's what was it? The girl next door's
Theory of everything.
Theory. I always want to say experience. Yeah, the next door's theory of everything. And I can remember thinking, gosh, you must be a very deep person, a very broad person, very insightful person. And I was intrigued by Katie, absolutely intrigued. But in the situations we were, often didn't get enough time to really delve and dive into what Katie's book was really trying to achieve. And so as you can see, Katie's a lovely lady. She's calm, sitting, and she's patient. But my impression of Katie when I first met her is still the same, is that she's very, very gentle, but she also is a very powerful and empowering woman. And so, Katie, I'm intrigued. Can you please tell me, what was it that led you to choose that title, and what does that title mean? And what was your story? What made you lead up to wanting to express yourself and write this book? And then later on, you can tell us how you're working towards your new book, which I'm so excited about, because I must tell you all, Katie's just divulged to me that she's got a box of books beside her that's just been delivered. And so these are only author's copies, but it's very exciting, isn't it, Katie? So I'm thrilled for you. So let's dive in then. And Katie, any illusion, sort of, what was it, enlightenment about your title for that book and how you got there?
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction, and yeah, kind words. I really appreciate it. Yeah, the first book which you mentioned earlier, there is a story behind that which I would love to share, because I think a lot of people are in kind of similar situations right now. So, and I think it's really important that we talk about this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I came to a point in my life where I literally had a step up or leave moment. I'd been gradually getting more and more mentally unwell, and then the mental illness ended up as manifesting as physical, as it does. It usually starts with emotion. And I had this moment where I got up one day and I was sat on the end of my bed, and I just heard this voice, and it was a really, really quiet voice. And I hadn't heard it before. It's something I didn't recognize, but it said to me, it's time. This is your time to step up or leave. And in that moment, I realized that my health had got to a point where I had to do something. I had to stand up and I had to take some control. But was I able to do that? Was I ready to do that? Was that something I could find the strength to do in the stages of mental and physical health that I was in? But in those moments, where those traumatic moments, you hear something other than that ramble in your head that is usually the controlling voice. It's usually the voice that dictates everything within your life. And I did hear this quieter voice that people will recognize as maybe intuition, a gut feeling, or just a knowing, when you just know something. There's no actual rational reasoning, but you just know. And I realized that this was an intuitive part of me, which in that silence, when everything that was not important just dropped away, because I was in such a moment of such a crossroads in my life, that I heard that it's time. And at that point, I knew I had to make a decision, but I kind of went into this shock. And then I heard the voice again, and it said, it's not your time, but you have to stand in your power. And I kind of thought, oh, that is a relief. But then on the other hand, I thought, what does that even mean? I have no clue what stand in your power means, no clue whatsoever. But I had this other feeling that something would guide me, something, that quiet voice that I heard that is often very difficult to hear over the noise of the world. It would guide me, and guide me it did. And from that moment, I made a decision that I wasn't ready to go. And when I thought about where I'd got to in my life, I realized that there was so much more. And I know it sounds cliche, but in that moment, when you get to that moment, it does make you look at your life, and it does make you look at what you've done, what your legacy is going to be, what you've achieved. Have you lived enough? Have you laughed enough? You know, have you worried about the little things and neglected the things that are just the most important? That someone said to me the other day, which is really important, is, you know, when you get to that rocking chair moment, you know, when you're in your rocking chair, will you go, I wish I hadn't worried about that. I wish I'd kind of looked into this bit and more, or, you know, I just laughed more and not worried about those things. So in that moment, I decided that I was going to step up. I didn't know what I was going to do or how I was going to do it, but I just knew I would be guided. And from that moment, everything that I needed fell into place. I mean, it's a kind of story, but I'll kind of condense it. I was shown this nutritional consultants course that came up, and at the same time, the money fell into place. So I thought, well, if I can do the nutrition training, maybe I can heal my physical body, and then we'll go from there. So that's what I did. I went back to study as a nutrition consultant. It was quite hard going because I was really ill, but I was in such an amazing surroundings with a lot of support, and I did heal my physical body. But then I actually not only healed my physical body, but I went and worked in the whole field of nutrition, which was amazing. But when I got into the field, I worked with people and I was doing amazing work, really helping people to regain their health. But I felt that I was missing something. And the bit that I think I was missing was that I was helping people and with natural methods, but I wasn't looking at why they were getting ill in the first place. And massive percentage of the time, there was always emotions behind the illness, that the emotions obviously are there, and then you tend to manifest physically. So that put me on another mission, and I wanted to work out what causes the issues in the first place. And for me, the mental health issues, so I had severe anxiety, turned into panic attacks, depression, all of those things. And I needed to understand what got me there. And if I could have this holistic approach to help heal the physical body through nutrition, through natural remedies, but also understand the mental side, it was so important. And I've always had this drive to not half-ass something, excuse the language, but, you know, I feel if I'm going to do something or work with clients, what I'm doing, I've got to do it properly, and I've got to understand it. So that sent me down another road of discovery, and I studied a whole array of different subjects, and that led me to understand how I became ill. And that kind of ties back into why I wrote the book, because I realized that for me and for many people that I've worked with now, they have, and nowadays especially more than ever, they have so many questions. And there's this, for me, I spent my life fitting into a box of what society expected to me. You know, we all come to this world as our souls are creative, we're creative beings, we're creative souls. When we come in, we have these beautiful missions, this wonderful imagination, and all these amazing kind of thoughts and possibilities as a child, and we grow, but as we grow, they just kind of get kind of squeezed out of us. And I fitted in like everybody else did, but I obviously had this calling, as everybody else does. You know, we're here for reasons, and the more I suppressed it, the more unhappy I became. I looked all right on the outside. I was really good at that bit, you know. Everyone, you know, look at me, yeah, she looks fine, life's bumbling along great. But, you know, I used to get that kind of Sunday night feeling about going to work. I was like, God, just don't want to do it, you know. And Friday, I just lived for the weekend. But there was something inside me that just wouldn't settle. It was like, there must be more, there's something I'm missing, and I think so many people are feeling that right now. And so I spent the next, well, up to now, if you put it up to now, 25 years on a mission to push the boundaries of what our human potential and pushing the boundaries of medical science and society and what we are conditioned to believe about ourselves, because there is so much more to us. And when I was studying and researching and working with clients, what I found was, especially with books, I would read so many books, but I found that I could find bits of the information. So, you know, people maybe want to master their mindset, or look at a certain aspect of spirituality, or, you know, read a book about a certain guru, and they would cover these bits and pieces, but I couldn't find anything that starts you off here, like, who are we, where do we come from, right the way through the whole process of why we're here, what the world is all about, you know, what on earth is going on, literally, right the way through to death, dying, and where are we going next. I couldn't find anything that put all that together, and it's very difficult to just take bits of the puzzle and really understand yourself and our life and our emotions and our health and all of it, and why we're here, those really deep questions. So I wrote a book, and that's where the first book came from. So I couldn't find what I needed. And also I also found that, you know, sometimes with different books and in sort of in the spiritual world, people would give so much of an answer or give you so much information, but then you'd have to keep going back because you're trying to find the other bits. And I didn't want that, because obviously my step up and leave was a pretty impressive moment in my life, which changed everything. But actually, once I made that declaration to find the answers to these bigger questions that pretty much all of us are really looking for, my life got really rocky then. But that's kind of another story. It really did get very, very, very challenging, but the challenges were there because I asked the question, and for me this is just my kind of mission to share what I've discovered with the world, but I don't want other people to unnecessarily, you know, I've done the legwork, and I think I've said to you before, to sit on a mountain retreat would have been amazing, you know, and just meditated all day to try and find the answers, but that's not me, you know. I have to walk the walk. I have to find the answers to these questions by going through it and really understanding it, in order to feel that I can share from the heart and through experience, because people can tell if you're authentic. People know, you know, they've got that sense with them.
I think that's hit a note with me, because I also went on a big journey a long time ago, and it's a desire to cut corners for people. You know, and years ago things weren't as accessible as they are now. Yeah. My only issue is that people might be too superficial, so they take too many people's answers for everything. So they need to do some. It's a balance, isn't it, between how much effort and what interests you. But it's a whole life's journey to do all this. So and if you want to pass it on to your grandchildren or your children, it's much nicer to have at least a concise book to go to. So how did that make you feel once you've written that book and you've begun talking and speaking and promoting your book? How did that feel for you at that time? Were you already on your healing path by that time? But did it heal you any further? Did it help you to grow? And what's been happening in between the two editions?
Right. Well, when I wrote the first book, which we mentioned earlier, when I wrote it, it was really strange, because I just had this feeling that I was writing this book, and although it sort of went out into the world, but I didn't feel that it was the right time to push it. And I just had this feeling that something was coming, something big was coming. And although I wrote the book kind of 4 and a bit years ago, I kind of knew that it was for something was coming up. But what it was, I didn't know. Obviously now, when we look at what we've all been through with COVID and what is happening in the world now, with so much uncertainty and everything else, that's when I knew this is when we're going to mention the second edition. This is the time it's been written for. Writing the book itself was an incredible experience. because I was able to, I think, I don't know if I would call it a healing experience, but it kind of made everything that I'd experienced and gone through, because I really have been like pushed to my limits just relentlessly for a number of years. It kind of made that feel worthwhile, but I also realized there's a lot of learning that comes from it, not necessarily healing, but when you look back on situations and things you've gone through, and when you start to write about different things, you find maybe something in it through writing that you didn't necessarily notice the first time or when you're in it. So it's a very expanding and enlightening experience. And I think also some of those pages I went back and I read afterwards, and I'm like, I can't remember writing that at all. I think it's, you know, that there is this, and we all have this ability. I think this is why journaling is so important. And you know, if you've got questions and you don't know what direction, or you're feeling, you know, low, to just write and just journal and write, because that, in that moment, you open yourself up to some to guidance, to a higher guidance. And I think when I was writing that book, is exactly what happened in certain parts of it. The information that I needed to add into that book was just channeled through.
You get into a flow, don't you? You get into the flow. I've had similar experiences.
Yeah. So
especially when you're prolific, if you're writing about a lot, I mean, that's a big subject, isn't it? Everything.
Well, I do cover
a spiritual journey.
Yeah. It's a massive amount of information covered, but in such down to earth, simple terms, because that was so important to me.
So what's happened then? Why have you come to a point now where you've revisited everything you've done before, and why do you think it's ripe now for this book, this new book that you're producing, this new edition?
Yeah, this new edition, the second edition, which is called, the title will probably explain it actually just on its own, but the new edition, second edition, is called Don't Wait for the World to Get Better. It's a journey from uncertainty to freedom, to profound freedom and happiness. So I think that kind of says it all, because it was interesting, because the type of people it went out to were people who were maybe quite well into a spiritual journey, or, you know, just that kind of area. People that I'd worked with, students that we'd had, and other clients and that I'd worked with. So it was people who already had some kind of understanding, maybe. But it was just kept small. But this time, I've never in the 25 years of working in health, personal, spiritual development, I've never ever seen such a rise in people's heightened emotional issues. So fear, anxiety, overwhelm, you know, depression, stress. Also, you know, things like feeling like there's something more, that there's something they're missing, you know, looking out at a world that makes no sense to them anymore. And this feeling of, they look around and think, well, I should be happy, but I'm not. There's just something that I can't put my finger on. And this is really what this book is about. And when I revisited the book, and obviously as we've been through COVID, during that period, I was very much pushed to look at it again and really feel what is needed right now, and what people are feeling is very reflective of spaces I've been in. And I just thought, you know, this people need this information, and I wish I'd had it when I had anxiety, when I couldn't make sense of the world, when I was worrying about money, and I was worrying about all these different things that people are now faced with, the uncertainties. I wish that I'd had this in my life.
So what's in this new book? What have you embedded in it for everyone that reads it? What will they get from it? But how will they get that? What kind of ingredients have you put into your lovely book?
So just going back to, I think with the way most people are feeling at the moment, it's just a really interesting process to see. And you can see that people are looking for something and searching for something, because the questioning on deeper levels is huge now. People are questioning, but also what I say is, it's not about fixing who you become, because that's the other thing. There's just, again, this massive skyrocketing of people, you know, wanting to heal trauma, looking at mastering mindset, looking at complementary therapies, looking at kind of spiritual books and looking for answers. You know, it's huge. The rise is huge. But what I would say about this book is, where this is different is that it's not about fixing who you've become. This is really important, because that is a continuation of the way we've been living. And what we need to start looking at is a different narrative, and the world doesn't make sense because we're not living the truth of who we are. We're not living as we were designed to, and we've got this kind of amnesia. Well, we have amnesia to the truth of who we are, and that is where all the answers are found. So I refer to them as the big five, and this is where the book comes in, because the big five are, who are we actually? Where do we come from? Why are we here? What on earth is going on, literally? And where are we going next? And kind of when you think of yourself and you say those questions, and especially even now when I verbalize them, they seem like the most obvious questions we should have answers to, living as human beings. Because without them, what security have we got? What understanding of ourselves have we got? What understanding of the world have we got? We have amnesia to that side of things. And this is the really, really crucial point to all of what I've written in the book. It's those big questions that we've kind of just been so distracted, ignored for so long, but we're at a stage where now clearly the way we've been living and the narrative that we're being fed is not nourishing us. It's not making us feel good. We've got huge uncertainty. We are so distracted by so much that's going on, but this comes down to this state of amnesia. And I often ask the question, and I do in the book, that if you woke up tomorrow with amnesia to who you were, complete amnesia, you know, how would you feel? What emotions would come up? And you know, it's fear, lack of identity, uncertainty, you know, not knowing who you are, not knowing your background, all these different emotions that come up. And actually those emotions are what you see playing out in the world. And when you think about a lot of the behavior of people who are very influential in this world, it comes down to needing identity, and that's what contributes to the control, greed, you know, us kind of all out for ourselves, and then the uncertainty, because we have that amnesia and we have the symptoms of amnesia to who we truly are. So people seem really ready now to look at a different way of living. They want a new narrative. They want to understand what this is all about, because they've had enough. And these 5 questions are basically the foundation that will set such a solid foundation for you, and a solid understanding of who you are and the world, and the fact that we don't have to wait for the world to get better to have the freedom and the happiness and the certainty that you want, because you will understand who you actually are. And then everything else, with that foundation in place, everything else that you want to put on top of it, whether it's mastering your mindset or healing trauma or just whatever it is, being a better parent, all these things will sit so beautifully on top. And because they're on that foundation of understanding of who you are and why we're here and what the world's about and where we're going next, that solid foundation means that they will sit on top securely. And not only will they be more successful, but you don't have to go in this loop, because so many people end up in this loop of, you know, of personal development and spiritual development, because this loop continues because you're not anything to base it on. Just keep going in the same kind of loop of self-discovery. So for me, this book was really important to really go through and update it slightly. I did a new introduction. I've also got these lovely little don't wait assignments at the end of each chapter, because each chapter is so interesting and so revealing. At the end of it, it gives you time to kind of go through it and go over it, and you can take your time. But the book itself, it's like a little mini course. It's like a deep and meaningful conversation and a book kind of all rolled into one. And the information in there is absolutely 1000% the information that is needed now to step out of
that sounds
uncertainty.
Yeah. I totally agree. It's certainly important questions, fundamental to our existence, and also we are all looking for the answers. So coming to you as a writer then, now that you've embarked on a writer's journey and you've become a writer, an author now, what kind of obstacles did you personally have in producing a book? Were there, because we all, often, so many of us want to write books and it takes a long time to get started, or many people don't do one at all, even though there's lots of books around. Many people don't often do more than one. And also, so it begs the question, you know, what kind of hurdles did you have to come across, or overcome, I should say, to manifest this wonderful book?
Good question.
Well, maybe some were personal, some might have been practical. I mean, money is often an issue, and it's certainly an issue for a lot of people at the moment.
The interesting thing was, I wrote this book at one of the most difficult, probably the most difficult time in my entire life. I had my children who obviously needed my care. My daughter was suffering from very bad health problems and some mental health issues. My mum was severely mentally ill, and that was a theme for many years. But despite all of that, I was able to write the book. And I think sometimes when you feel that you haven't got the time, or you're overwhelmed or whatever, it gives you actually this incredible focus when you sit down to write. And so I think for me, it was actually very therapeutic at the time, because it gave me a different focus to the madness that was going on all around me. So I think sometimes if you think, oh, I can't do this because I've got this to do and kids to look after, whatever. It took me 2 years to write because I didn't have loads and loads of time. But I took chunks of time, and it might have been in the evening when, you know, kids were in bed or whatever, and I might just write a few pages. So I think having a mindset where actually you don't have to sit and write this whole book, just take it a step at a time, and it doesn't matter how long it takes, because it will be ready when the time is right. So for instance, now, you know, all these years, well, 4.5 years later, the book is absolutely ripe and ready now for what people need. So we tend to try and put timescales on everything, put ourselves under pressure, and so, you know, even if you write a few pages a day, I think that is magnificent to do.
Yeah, I think you're taking the pressure off yourself as part of your mental health and good mindset, isn't it?
Completely.
And to do what you can in the circumstances you can.
Exactly.
So what are your goals now then? So I know you've got a book of authors' copies down there, and the proofreading is a big issue around writing a book. What are your goals? Because you've obviously so close, you've got a pre-registering page on your website that everyone can go to pre-register to get a copy of your book once it's published properly. So what then? Are you focusing on the delivery of the book, or are you going to move straight on to something else, or are you going to sort of walk away and say,
no, I'm far from walking away and going, it's taken me 25 years to really now step out into what I feel is my mission. And with this book now, I would love just to get this information out to as many people as possible, because it's so needed right now. And, you know, I've done the groundwork, I've done the legwork, and it's something that I really want to share. So I will be doing podcasts and interviews like this about the book, and really just want to get that information out there. But saying that, I'm continuing my own practice, so I still will be working with clients as well. And also, I'm in the process of recording a digital course, which is based around the book, but it's more kind of day-to-day, the practicalities of living and walking this information. So there's lots of bits and pieces in the pipeline. I also have some beautiful products and vibrational essences actually that pair really well when you're reading the book. So they'll we'll share my website, I'm sure, after, but they're on the website as well. And one of them, for instance, which is beautiful to take while you're reading the book, is it's all about integrating new information and opening up to higher guidance. So as you're learning, or remembering, I shouldn't say learning, because all this information is already in you, the essences there that help to integrate this beautiful information as well. And also coming next year, myself and my colleague who I've worked with for a lot of years, we teach complementary therapies, run workshops, retreats. We have got some incredible in-person. I'm so happy to be able to get back to in-person courses, which the information in this book, we dive deeper and we just immerse ourselves in it. And I can honestly say we've done these courses before, but we've included more updated stuff now.
And that's so important, isn't it? Because the book is what ignites us and feeds us, but it can only take you so far. You can't replace that personal involvement with a coach or trainer or teacher.
I've missed that so much since COVID. Missed just being with people and taking them through experiences, and that personal touch. Yes, so you mentioned your website there. So that's divineroyalty.co.uk. Divine Royalty, yes.
Yeah, and that's lovely. I did have a look at it before, and if anybody wants to pre-register for Katie's book, which is called, would you like to give us the title?
Yeah, the book is called Don't Wait for the World to Get Better. It's a journey from uncertainty to profound freedom and happiness.
Yes, and it sounds great. But if you'd like to pre-register for that book, if you go to Katie's website, divineroyalty.co.uk, there is a section on there that I found, which is books, which leads you to the landing page or your book page. Yes. And that's a good way to get a head start on this.
Yeah, and
I think you're going to be busy.
It's also, if you pre-register, I will let you know as soon as the book's available, and also just for the pre-registered people, there will be a big discount, which will be for a very short period of time, but it's just for the people who've pre-registered. So
sounds great.
An amazing discount, so you'll be able to pick it up.
That's great. That's a great idea. So do you have a publishing date? Do you have a date that people are looking at? Obviously you might not want to be defined or
we're so close, but it literally will be within the next probably couple of weeks.
Oh, really good. So I was thinking of Christmas, if you want to pre-register for yourself, but also you might want to consider Christmas presents at the moment, because I don't know about you, but the longer I live, the harder it is to buy presents for people. Even the grandchildren are too old now. They only want money.
And also, I think our kind of buying habits have changed as well, because I mean, a lot of people actually don't want to kind of go into the hustle and bustle of it all. So obviously a lot of people order online, but also it's kind of the experience and buying things now that actually mean something or make a difference, or and this will change lives. I mean, you can have a look on.
I was just going to say that in my family, we've moved over from some presents, but gifts, if you like, but more to experiences and valuing time. And perhaps COVID's done that anyway, but we've always been leaning more and more towards that. And I definitely don't want goods and items. I'd rather have a book or ideas or notions or opportunity to go on a course and things like that. So it is well worth considering if you're intrigued by Katie's book. And Katie, you might like to work with Katie. So that's lovely. So that will be on your tail, waiting for information about the actual dates and pre-registering and everything. So that's wonderful. Lovely. Well, thank you so much, Katie. I think we've come to a natural sort of pause now. And I think you've given us a really good insight into your book and what's motivated you. And a lot of people will connect with the whole thing about mental health and physical health and well-being, nutrition. I think there is a great renaissance of understanding about how we work and how we can change and integrate these things into our lives and avoid doctors. As the further away the NHS gets, the more we all come together to heal ourselves.
What I would say, sorry, I was just to say very quickly, actually, in the book, I've said about these big questions, but I talk about health and I talk about disease and I talk about inherited illness, and actually the way it's perceived, and I really break it down to a really easy to understand way that actually, especially with inherited illness, you aren't destined to get that. There's so many different factors. So yeah, there's a lot covered in the back of the book, including looking at health and that side of things too. So.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Well, I feel better. I had a lovely morning, but I always feel uplifted, and it's been fascinating when I talk to you. It's always hopeful. I think that's another thing. You're a passionate woman with a passion for your purpose and your sharing of your understanding, but you're also very enlightening and light. You know, you're not a heavy person. You're a very light person.
We have fun, haven't we?
Wonderful, and having fun is so important, isn't it?
So we've forgotten a lot of the time. We've forgotten to have fun now because it's just all got too heavy, and it doesn't need to be that way. It does not have to be that way at all.
No. Great. Well, lovely. So pop over to Katie Young's website, and that's at divineroyalty.co.uk, and look up the book and get pre-registered and keep in touch with Katie. I don't know if you've got a newsletter on there or anything else that comes to them if they go and
when they sign up, they'll automatically get an email back with different information, and then the newsletters will start to come out again.
Lovely. Brilliant. I can't wait. I hope you're all intrigued as well, and hopeful that Katie's given us some really interesting but helpful transformations are part of life, aren't we? We transform all the time. So please do have a look at Katie's book, and thank you, Katie. That was really lovely. Thank you.
It's been amazing. Thank you, Victoria. It's been
okay, bye for now, everyone.
Thank you.